Hi friends, welcome to the Ian Khan Show. In today's special Aftershock series, I have with me Thomas Frey. Thomas is a world-renowned futurist, CSP, and founder of the Davinci Institute. He has spent 15 years at IBM as an engineer and designer, where he received over 270 awards, more than any other IBM engineer, and he's also a past member of the 999 Society. Thomas and I are collaborators to the newly released book Aftershock that captures the state of the world 50 years after Alvin Toffler wrote his bestseller book, Future Shock.
Hi, this is Ian Khan, and welcome to the Ian Khan Show. Today I have with me Thomas Frey, a world-renowned futurist, and literally he's one of the most amazing experts in the world today who can help understand the future. Now, Thomas is also a contributor to Aftershock, which I am a collaborator to as well. And my conversation with Thomas today is all about tomorrow. Thomas, welcome to the Ian Khan Show. How are you today?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. Thomas, your work and your article in Aftershock is incredible. So Aftershock is a book where 50 different futurists of the world came together, provided some insight. And your piece about forging our relationship with the future it's such a nice read, and I've read it multiple times. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Thomas. Who is Thomas Frey?
I'm just a guy who thinks about the future a lot. So I view my job as helping people understand what the future holds. And even if we can get just a slight bit better at understanding the future, that gives us such a huge advantage in the business world, in our relationships, in understanding how to use the technology that's around us. All of those things become much, much clearer as we move forward. And so I love to kind of expand our thinking about this relationship we have with the future. Because most people don't think that we have a relationship with the future, and most people don't think that I was a human factors engineer at IBM, and that was the man-machine interface. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about how we interface with devices and computers and programs and apps, but we don't think much about how we interface with the future. And that's probably our biggest interface of all, because the future is coming at us all the time, full force. We can't slow it down. We can't speed it up. It's coming at us at the same pace every day. And the better we get at understanding that, it creates such a huge advantage. And so I love getting into these discussions because they're so philosophical and esoteric and hurt your head some of the time.
And you're right about it. There's just way too much happening sometimes when you talk about the future, and but sometimes you really want to understand what drives my tomorrow. What is it that I should do that creates a better tomorrow? Now, this book, which is Aftershock, is incredible. I think it's hitting the shelves soon. It's in pre-promotion right now. And it'll be on Amazon in the next few weeks or something. And I think it's priced reasonably well. I don't know what the price is. I've looked at a majority of the articles in this book, and the amount of insights that I'm getting and the amount of content in there is so relevant that I really believe this is like a Bible of futurists, for futurists, by futurists, for the rest of the world. Now, your article in particular talks about guiding our inner vision. It talks about resetting our calculus, and 3 powerful ways our inner vision controls our lives. I want to ask you about how do people, as people who live here on this planet, how do we control this tomorrow? How do we proactively create a future? I think these are some of the points that I want to talk to you about. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it gets to this point of, how much control do we have over the future? If you ask this question of how does the future get created? Well, the future gets created in the minds of everybody around us. We all participate in creating the future, but certainly some of us have more influence than others. But I use this phrase quite a bit: the future creates the present. Now, this is just the opposite of what most people think. most people think that what we're doing today is going to create the future, but from a little different perspective, it's these images of the future that we have in our head determine our actions today. So the key thing is, if we change our vision of the future, we change the way we make decisions today. And that is a profound statement, because there are so many things going on. As we understand this new technology, as we understand what's coming down the pike, and in what companies are introducing their product offerings, the way they're training their people, all of those things are going to affect us one way or another. And as we change this vision that we have in our head of the future, that changes the way we make decisions today. And so every talk that I do, that's one of my promises to the audience, that I'm going to change their vision of the future. And so far nobody has said that I haven't. So we'll see if I have a detractor sometime in the future.
No, absolutely. You bring a lot of you're a body of knowledge. You have a lot of insight in the future, especially given your work, what you've done since the beginning of your career. You mentioned IBM, and you are one of the very few people who hold a number of awards that have been awarded to you within IBM. Is that correct?
Yes, I was a recipient of over 270 awards in the 15 years that I spent at IBM, which just means I was really good at abusing all the systems that they had there. So, if you're a person that has a lot of ideas, you tend to be a lot of work for everybody around you. And I was just a lot of work.
Yeah. But that's incredible. I mean, you've done so much in your, the corporate life that you probably lived in the past or worked for an incredible organization like IBM. But right now you founded and you run the Davinci Institute. Tell me a little bit about the Davinci Institute. What do you do? What do you offer as that institute?
Yeah, at the Davinci Institute, we keep continually updating and changing our business model, but we operate as a futurist think tank, and our mission is to look at the future and try to understand it in better and different ways. Now, one thing that we've spent a lot of time trying to understand is this idea of collaborative workspaces. So the idea of co-working and flexible office space, and how people work together, and how we can improve that has become kind of a mission that's near and dear to my heart. We have roughly 39 mostly startup companies in our space right now, and it's a rather eclectic group of companies, and how they mix and get together, and how they interact is quite fascinating. Now, when I was at IBM, at the time, IBM was very insulated from the rest of the world. We had to go through turnstiles, use badges, lots of security, and we were so far away from everything else in the community. It was at least a 20-minute walk out to the car, and so nobody went out to lunch with people in the community. So our entire Rolodex existed of just other IBM people. Now, that can be good, it can be bad, but I felt when I left IBM, I was just so isolated from the rest of the world. I needed to find other people, and now this collaborative workspace is just exactly the opposite. Now, if I have a problem, I can just walk down the hall and ask questions, and I'll get 2 or 3 different answers.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I believe the collaborative workspaces are changing. First of all, the definition of work. It's different to work in a collaborative space. And it's also offering for startups and companies that just don't want to be grounded in one place, the ability to scale faster and rapidly expand. And I see that a trend that's really helping the younger generation, the newer entrepreneurs, to establish a presence and to do what they need to do best.
Yeah, the background for that is that most landlords, the people who own the buildings, still want people to sign 5- and 10-year leases.
Correct.
But most businesses have no clue where they're going to be even a year from now, let alone 5 or 10 years. So that creates room for a middle layer. And that's where the co-working flex space comes into play.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of questions to ask you about the future, and I might as well take on the opportunity to see what can we learn. Now, I want to talk about things that would maybe potentially create a huge impact for humanity, for us in terms of changing what we do. Right now in the world, we have a huge crisis of the coronavirus, as an example, a health outbreak that's challenging governments, that's affecting travel, that's affecting economies. I mean, automobile industry is down, coffee industry is down, a bunch of different industries are down because consumption is being affected. There's a huge economic impact of something that has happened in the healthcare industry, and it's a global impact. We all are affected. What are your insights on the future of healthcare? Would we be able to maybe detect and avoid and eliminate and work on breakouts like this, or other things that affect us globally now?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to approach this question. Are you familiar with the concept of digital twins?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so if we have a piece of equipment and we add enough sensors and enough indicators, then we can actually create a digital model of that, whether it's a tractor or a turbine in a power plant or a cruise ship. We can actually create a digital model of that and monitor everything that goes on inside that big piece of equipment. Now, if you translate that into the human body, it's only a matter of time before we put enough sensors on the human body so that we can actually create a digital twin of ourselves. And at some time in the future, a doctor will be able to remotely scan our body, scan what's happening inside, and determine, or it's an AI doctor, will be able to determine what's going on and what's at fault. And that's going to shortcut all of this distance right now between the first symptoms and then actual detection of what's going on. So reducing that time down to nearly zero is going to be a massive shift. But there's a couple things in the world right now that are just way out of whack with the rest of society, and it's healthcare and education. Now, because of that, I mean, just ask the average person on the street, and they say, "Wow, these are things that are way overpriced for what we're getting for them." So whenever that happens throughout history, this has happened a number of different times. Whenever that happens, the entrepreneurs in society are drawn to where the money is, and we have this beehive of activity going on around ed tech and health tech right now. And over the next 10 years, we're going to see the entire industry morph and shift and change in ways that we could never imagine. Now, I think this is, I have no idea how exactly it's all going to change. I have some ideas, but there's so much activity going on right now. It's quite fascinating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I wish technology evolved or emerged at a very linear pace. It's not happening that way. There's just ups and downs. There's pockets of innovation. On one hand, we're very futuristic and we can, do all the things we need to do with our devices and cell phones. But on the other hand, about 2 billion people in the world live below below a poverty line where they don't have access to basic healthcare, as an example, or even a toilet. More than 1 billion people don't have access to a toilet. And so there's this huge discrepancy between the modern world, the developed world, and the people who need help. Personally, I don't think this is a technological issue. It's more about adoption. It's more about how progressive governments are, where wars are happening, where political instability exists. But that's the nature of the world we live in, and hopefully the future is brighter. I want to ask you about some trends in the future with respect to what are your favorite areas of the future where you think we're going to make much more progress? Is it in the future of automobiles that, hey, we'll have flying cars in the near future? Is it the future of mobility? Is it the future of healthcare? The future of work? What are some of your favorites?
Well, one that I spent quite a bit of work on in the middle of the night last night working on. We're going through this massive demographic shift in the world right now, and a little over half of all the babies born in the world are born in 6 different countries. Over half of all the babies in the world are born in Angola, Congo, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Tanzania, and Pakistan. Now, this is shifting the demographics of the world in a huge way. Now, if I ask this question of out of every million people that are born, how many Einsteins and how many Mozarts are born in every million people? And then I'll ask the question, can there be more? And should there be more?
Yeah.
And so this idea of how do we optimize the world to take advantage of the new talent that's coming out of the woodwork, that's being born around the world, can we optimize mankind to truly transcend kind of this transition phase that we're going through right now, and become something more? And I think that becomes a rather fascinating question. I personally don't have the answer for that, but I love asking that question because we've been conditioned to think that, well, there's a certain number of these true geniuses that will come out of the woodwork, but we have a grueling path right now to get there.
Yeah.
We're not good at training people. We're not good at predicting who these individuals are going to be. They're the anomalies. Can we get to a point where maybe 10% of the world are true geniuses, 20%, maybe even 50%?
Yep.
If there, should we get there? And then how does that change the world? So
yeah, absolutely. And education and learning, and there's the phrase, you've got to unlearn and relearn, but it's not just about the unlearning. It's about being able to provide basic education, and then the pathway to perhaps maybe get to the place where you can say, yes, education is happening at a level where we want to. So big challenge. Tell me a little bit about your insights on that.
Yeah, we haven't got to the hyper-individualized education yet. We haven't got, I think we're entering a phase now where we're going to create AI teacher bots that are going to teach us individually, So this AI teacher bot develops a relationship with you, and you start learning things at a faster rate than ever before. It learns all of our idiosyncrasies, all of our proclivities, all of our personal key reference points, and when we're engaged and when we're not engaged. It'll know what skills we currently have and what skills we're missing, and then how to bring us up to a new skill level. Yeah. And that's the type of thing that I think we can start engaging in. And I think we're right on the edge of that. And by 2030, my prediction is that the largest company in the tech world is going to be an education-based company that we haven't heard of yet. Because in my mind, that's the largest opportunity nobody's quite cracked the code for that yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree. There's such a tremendous amount of opportunity, and you don't know by 2030, what will happen in the next few years. And because companies have fundamentally shifted from that traditional model of being a large company, and then they've grown. Today, the largest companies are less than 10 years old or 5 years old, and that's kind of the trend that's shaping the enterprise in general. I wish I could speak with you for the next 6 hours, but time is short. And I want to ask you a couple of short questions. First one about Toffler. So we know that Alvin Toffler, his wife Heidi Toffler, have had a profound impact on the world of futurism and futurists in helping understand where the future is, but in also finding a way to track the future. I think that's the foundation they have provided. You've written a lot about in the book about the influence they played on your life in the beginning of your career. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah. Well, just the idea that it's okay to talk about the future. I mean, I mean, as simplistic as that sounds, I mean, this idea that you just don't have to keep your nose to the grindstone all the time. I still think one of my biggest influences in life was the Jetsons, that came out in 1962. Now, the thing I didn't know about the Jetsons was it was intended to portray life in 2062, which was actually quite cool. Now, I was asked by the Arconic Corporation to work on recreating the intro to the Jetsons. Now, they wanted to use this as a marketing promotion. They wanted to, based on our understanding today of what 2062 holds, how would we go about recreating the intro to the Jetsons? And there was 4 of us that were consultants on that. And then they brought in one of the Hollywood filmmaker, Justin Lin, to create that. And so you can find that on YouTube, and it's actually quite fascinating. But the whole thing is, it drives back to the point that our understanding of the future is continually changing. And the Tofflers did a really good job of kind of making the world aware that if we understand the future just a little bit better, we can create a much more inviting world ahead. And I think that was, it sounds very simplistic, but that was one of their biggest contributions to society.
Absolutely. Thomas, tell us how people and our viewers can find more about you and your work. Where should they go?
Yeah, just go to futuristspeaker.com. They can find more there, or davinciinstitute.com. Read about some of the stuff that we're doing there. All of my papers I post on futuristspeaker.com on the blog. So there's well over 400 papers that I've written on every topic, from the future of 5G to the future of AI to should we gamify citizenship. There's a lot of fun stuff.
That's incredible. Thomas, thank you so much for being part of this podcast. Again, for all the viewers, Aftershock is available on Amazon.com. You can buy it and check it out. Thomas has written a really insightful article. It's there, it's in there. So read it, learn about what's going on, and hopefully be part of the futurist thinking community. Everybody can be a futurist, but you've got to be able to, I believe, think in a particular direction, and this book is an amazing resource. Thomas, thank you so much for being part of this podcast. I love your ideas, your content, and the inspiration that you provide to all of us out there in the world. Thank you so much, and we'll continue talking to you in the future.
Thank you, and just remember, the future favors the bold.
The future favors the bold. I love that. Thank you, Thomas. With that thought, the future favors the bold. Thank you so much, everybody, and you take care.
All right, thank you.
Hey friend, this is Ian Khan. If you liked what you saw on my video, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be inspired every single day with innovative content that keeps you fresh, updated, and ready for the future. For more information, also visit my website at iankhan.com.